This conference will now
Immense
be recorded.
pleasure to introduce our today's eminent speaker, Dr. Shailesh Deshpande sir. Dr. Shailesh Deshpande sir has completed his BMS from Pune University in 2001. He has completed his MD in Kai Chikitsa from Mumbai University in 2006 with first rank. Sir is recently working as professor and head of department of Kai Chikitsa for undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD courses at Parul Institute of Ayurveda, Gujarat. Sir has been awarded with various awards such as Vaidya Ramashiromani Dwivedi Kai Chikitsa Award for 2006 from University of Mumbai for securing first rank at MD final examination in Mumbai University. Sir has also received Certificate of Merit from Charak Pharmaceuticals Limited for securing first rank at MD final examination. Sir has also received Maha Ayush Kamal Award in January 2018 for contributions in Ayush propagation. He has received Doctor of the Year Award in 2017-18 for outstanding clinical work in PDS Ayurved Rugnalaya and Sterling Multi-Speciality Hospital at Nigadi, Pune. Sir has vast clinical experience. He was junior research fellow at BSDT's Cancer Research Project in Wagoli. Sir has conducted various research clinical trials on various subjects such as effect and efficacy and safety of 7 different topical formulations in subjects suffering from osteoarthritis of knee and many more. Sir has also published various research articles in many national and international journals. Sir has also guided various PG students and PhD students. Sir has got 3 books published in his name. One is Shatkriya Kal, another is Unfolding Concepts in Ayurveda, an Introduction to Panchakarma. Sir has delivered various guest lectures on various platforms at national and international conferences. Sir has also visited as guest lecturer to Ayurveda Academy of Yoga in Daily Life at Vienna, Austria, for delivering lectures on Panchakarma and Ayurveda in April 2007. So the biodata will continue for another 5 minutes. So I take this opportunity to welcome our sir, Dr. Shailesh Deshpande sir, to share his views and experiences on challenges in Ayurvedic practice of Prameha. Over to you, Dr. Shailesh Deshpande sir.
I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Amit, for the generous introduction that you have given of me. And it's also very heartfelting to see some of my students and also the teachers who have taught me the ABC of Ayurveda in the audience. So we would start with the today's topic. The title is The Challenges in Ayurvedic Management of Prameha, which is correlated with the diabetes mellitus in the modern sciences. So before seeing in the challenges of Ayurvedic management of Prameha, that is management of Prameha in Ayurveda's way, let us see whether Ayurveda itself, the industry of Ayurveda or the Ayurvedic practitioners are able to challenge the management of diabetes mellitus that is done with other health sciences. So at the outset, let us see where the world is standing regarding the diabetes. If we look at the current status in the world, the number of diabetics is projected to reach at the level of 700 billion at the rate till 2045. And in Southeast Asia, where our country is there, it is projected to reach with the increase of 74%. So what significance does it give is whenever the young practitioners or students who are studying Ayurveda now will have many patients of diabetes to treat when they come to the practice, when they start their practice. That's why if we can command the treatment of diabetes according to Ayurveda's way, it will give them good bread and butter. It will become the backbone. It can become the backbone of their practice. They can practice as specialist doctors for treatment of diabetes from Ayurveda's point of view. If we look at the figures which are in India, the average prevalence is 12.1, which is considered as very high, and the prevalence of impaired glucose tolerance is considered as 8.4. So we can imagine that out of this 8.7, many of them will turn into diabetic and will increase the prevalence rate in coming years. So a lot of patients are going to come to us for the Ayurvedic management of diabetes. So if we look at the fate of diabetics, what happens to a diabetic patient? Because the modern science or the conventional science is failing in some areas in the treatment of diabetes, the situation is that the diabetes mellitus is the seventh leading cause of death. It A patient of diabetes is twice more prone to the AMI, that is acute myocardial infarction, and 17 times more prone to the end stage renal disease. So in any of the dialysis centers, you will find that there are multiple patients of diabetes who are coming there for the dialysis treatment. And with proper implementation of Ayurvedic principles in the management of diabetes, we can avoid such situations and we can help the patient in a better way. In same way, if we consider about the death rate, and 1 in 20 deaths is due to diabetes, 6 deaths per minute are accounted for diabetes in all the world. So a lot of deaths are also happening, and that actually indicates that there there is a lot of room for improvement as far as the treatment of diabetes is concerned. So we can imagine that the conventional method is unable to treat the diabetes effectively as it should have been. But even though the situation is so, if we see the expenditure made by different countries for the treatment of diabetes, you will see big numbers, large numbers, billions of US dollars are being spent on the treatment of diabetes. Like in high income countries, the annual income in 2019 that was spent on the treatment of diabetes is reaching to 495 billion US dollars, and in low income countries also it is not less, it is 138 billion US dollars. If we see the overall drug market of diabetes, then if we the size of the market size, or the amount of medicines which are sold in the market is too high as far as the uh, sale of medicines related with the diabetes is concerned. Insulin, which was considered as a magic remedy as far as diabetes was concerned, is also having a huge market. The annual sale is expected to reach by the end of 2030 to $70.6 billion. In India, we are not behind the world, and total expenditure is was estimated as $331 billion in 2017. So if we consider these figures in billions, in hundreds of billions of dollars, where do we stand? So what is the market size of Ayurvedic uh, treatment which is offered for the treatment of diabetes? If when I tried to search this data, I came up with a zero, because there was no such market survey done about the market size or the expenditure done by the patients for getting Ayurvedic treatment, especially related with the diabetes. Then I tried to search for the overall size of Ayurvedic uh, pharmaceutical industry, and I came to the fact that Ayurvedic market was valued at only 4.5 billion in 2019, which is some 100 times or maybe more than that, but it is that much less as far as the global market of only diabetes is concerned. Though it has got a good CAGR, that is growth rate of 16.14%, we will need to work hundreds of years to reach to the global size of diabetes only for Ayurvedic management. Uh, and I would like to highlight that this market size is of total Ayurvedic products which are sold in market, not just for treatment of diabetes. But the world is looking towards us, towards the Ayurvedic science in a very positive way, and it has been told in a report that was published in some good marketing journal that world is looking at Ayurveda for giving the best possible answer for treatment of diabetes, because Ayurveda is considered as the most ancient and longest surviving health science on the globe. So with this little introduction, let us see what challenges we have before us. Firstly, the concept. Now, a lot of scholars in Ayurveda have this problem with the concept of prameha and concept of madhumeha. So we will see, we can find that a lot of scholars in Ayurveda say that prameha is equivalent to diabetes mellitus, and many other scholars also say that no, prameha is not equal to diabetes mellitus, madhumeha is diabetes mellitus. So there is a conflict, and this conflict has led to an unclear correlation between the two sciences. Yes, it is a question that whether to correlate in such a way or not, but we have to have some type of understanding between the two sciences when a patient comes to us with some with the files full of reports and all. We need to have some interpretation in our way. Now, why people or why some scholars say that prameha is not equal to diabetes mellitus? Because they understand prameha according to the definition that samanyam lakshanam tesham prabhuta avila mutrata, or according to the nirukti of prameha. So in any condition, if the patient is having prabhuta and avila mutrata, they will call that condition as a condition of prameha, but they will not look into the details of prameha. So this one concept is prevalent, that is prameha is not equal to diabetes mellitus, but prameha is the set of different diseases which are affecting the formation of urine, and madhumeha only is considered as diabetes mellitus. This is first opinion. And second opinion which is prevalent among the scholars is prameha is type 2 diabetes mellitus, whereas madhumeha is type 1 diabetes mellitus. But if we look at the classical texts, then we can understand that specific hetus are mentioned as causative factors of prameha. So it is not mentioned, or it is not the fact that some haphazard uh, causative factors are mentioned, but specific causative factors are mentioned uh, uh, for causing prameha. Specific dosha and dusha are also mentioned for causing prameha. Like dosha is mentioned as bahudrava shleshma dosha visheshaha. So only kapha, only sanchiti of kapha or collection of kapha is not going to cause prameha, but bahudrava, that means increased liquid, the kapha with increased liquidity or increased liquid property is going to cause prameha, which is very specific. And in any of urine, any of conditions related with the urine infection or that affect the urine formation, all the time in all the cases bahudrava shleshma is not causative. Then specific dushas are mentioned: bahu and abadha, meda, mausa, shariraja kledaha, Shukra, Shonita, Vasa, Majja, Lasika, Rasa. We know all these classical references. So to counter with the two prevalent opinions, we have to look at the fact that prameha is caused due to a very specific dosha, that is Bahudrava Shleshma, and prameha has definite doshas which are uh, underlined, which are highlighted by the ancient classical texts. Then a specific method of samprapti is also mentioned. It is not happening that in a random way or in a haphazard way, but whenever the dosha and the dusha are the dosha, that is Bahudrava Shleshma or increased kleda, is getting mixed with the Shithila dhatus, it is causing prameha, it is starting the samprapti of prameha. And whenever that increased kleda is being brought to the basti, which is Mutravaha Srotas, it is causing increased Gaurava, that is loss of elasticity in the basti, that is Mutravaha Srotas, and it is specific in the samprapti of prameha, which may not be specific for any other disease which is causing some different urine formation. So samprapti of prameha has to happen in this very specific way. So we can understand that prameha uh, is not a set of disease that contains one uh, characteristic feature of Prabhuta Avila Mutrata, but the samprapti of Prameha has to happen in this specific way, involving the doshas, causing Dhatu Shithilata, and involvement of Basti in this particular way, as explained beautifully by Acharya Charaka. Then and then only we can call the disease as Prameha. So we can understand that Prameha is not a set of disease as explained by some of the scholars in recent era. It is one particular disease that shows that is exhibited in patients in a different ways. So after we overcome with this challenge, the next challenge is the cure. If we look at the modern sciences, they say that the cure is not possible, but diabetes can be controlled, and in some cases there may be remission in the blood sugar levels can be seen, especially for a very short period of time, but it is not permanent. The distinction between the successful treatment and cure is blurred because diabetes is a very chronic disease. If we look at the Ayurveda's view, Ayurveda has no such ambiguity as far as cure of prameha is concerned. Ayurveda has clearly said that sadhya kapotha dasha pittajashat yapya na sadhyah pavanat chatushkaha, and the reasons are also mentioned thereof. On the other hand, it is also told that prameha is prameho anushanginam. Anushangi is punarbhavi. That means it will come on, it will recur again and again. So when acharyas are very clear that at least kafaja prameha is curable, kafaja prameha is sadhya. Here the sadhya, we need to understand that sadhya is complete remission in the pathology, not that, not just controlling the disease pathology, but complete remission is expected when we say that kafaja prameha is sadhya. And when it is clearly mentioned by the ancient sages, then we need to understand that at their point of time they must have the capacity to cure this particular disease. Now with the advancement, where the time has passed a lot, and with the advancement and with the availability of newer and newer technologies to prepare medicines, to test the patients, to keep an eye on the pathology, why it is happening that we are unable to control, we are unable to cure the disease, even though it is mentioned as curable, at least for one particular type of prameha is mentioned as curable, why we are unable to cure it? in current days. Now, the pathology, the shloka of Samprapti itself indicates why it is difficult to cure such type of condition, and that is why it might have been mentioned as Anushangi by the ancient sages. It has got multiple doshyas. If we go through the list of the doshyas, then we can understand that every dhatu except asthi is clearly mentioned as doshya, and there are other factors also like oja, vasa majja, vasa lasika, and kleda, which are mentioned in the list of the doshyas. So multiple doshyas are getting affected. So we can imagine that uh, in every part of the body, in every corner of the body, the disease can show its manifestations. The disease can show its effect, and it can be difficult to control, to have a control on every corner of the body or every part of the body simultaneously. That that could have been one of the hurdles for getting the complete cure of the disease. But we need to also understand that all the doshas are not participating at the same time, and it is the classical feature of prameha that the involvement of doshas may keep on changing from time to time. So if we have the reference of the samprapti of prameha, we understand that though 10 doshas are mentioned as 10 factors are mentioned as doshas of prameha, in actual shloka, Acharya Charaka has mentioned the tushti of only two dushyas, that is Meda and Mausa. Probably when Acharya Charak was writing his Samhita, he might have uh, come across with the patients of Prameha who have maximum dushti of Meda and Mausa Dhatu. That's why it has been enlisted in the Samprapti, in the shloka of that Samprapti. But other dushyas are also mentioned in the Samprapti of Prameha. Like if the med is getting involved, then the symptoms of medovah srotas tushti are seen in the patient. When Mausa dhatu is getting involved, then it is causing puti mausa and pidaka. But how to understand the involvement of other doshas is not very clearly mentioned. So how we can understand if the patient is having involvement of rasa, or if the patient is having involvement of rakta, or if the patient is having involvement of majja or shukra or any other uh, causative factor or any other doshas in the samprapti of prameha is difficult to understand from the current uh, from the current textual knowledge that we have, and we need to have an improvised we need to have an improvised patient examination for it. So when this was discussed with one of my teachers, then we can find that dhatu shithilata is the hallmark of samprapti of prameha. So if there is no dhatu shaitilya, prameha will not happen. The samprapti of prameha will not be complete. So what could be the effect of dhatu shithilata on the dhatu itself? Then we could understand some concepts explained about the dhatus, that is dhatu sarata. We say that the dhatu is it can function, can show its optimum function if it is saravan, and as the sarata of dhatu keeps on decreasing, uh, its function will not be optimum. So if we can apply the same principle over here and try to see whether we can see this, whether we can, whether it can help in the, uh, whether it can help in understanding the involvement of specific doshyas, it will be very helpful. There are symptoms of, or there are characteristics of dhatu sarata mentioned in uh, all the samhita granthas. So what we can do is we can examine the patient on the basis of Dhatu Sarata, and we can say, or we can try to conclude, or we can try to diagnose the Dhatu Shaithilya on the basis of symptoms of Dhatu Asarata. So if a patient suddenly starts showing symptoms of Dhatu Asarata, then we can imagine, or we can try to counter check whether that particular dusha is getting involved in the samprapti of prameha or not. Similarly, some of the diseases have been mentioned for their dhatugata lakshanas like jwara, or like vata vyadhis or kushta. So appearance of these particular dhatugata lakshana, even though the samprapti of that particular disease is not taking place, then those could be considered as the symptoms of dhatu shaithilya of that particular dusha. And in that way, but a lot of work needs to be done on it, a lot of observations need to be done on it. But with practice, if we try to collect the data on these parameters, probably in then probably we will be able to postulate, or we will be able to see whether any particular dusha is involved in the samprapti of prameha or not, and that has to be done from time to time. That will need to be done at each visit when the patient sees us, so that we will have a we will have a good observation about one particular patient on the basis of dhatu sarata and asarata, and on the basis of symptoms of dhatugata vyadhi lakshanas, even though that particular vyadhi is not present. These can be the basis of our uh, judgment about involvement of particular dusha. Then the approach of treatment. If we Google the thing, if we Google the about the Ayurvedic treatment for diabetes, then we can see a lot of such brands which are available in the market and which are prescribed by many of the practitioners for the treatment of diabetes, or for the treatment of prameha. But we need to understand that prameha is having 10 doshas. So let us see. And yes, one more thing, all these proprietary medicines, or all these medicines, are having one thing in common, that is all of them, or majority of them, are having tikta, kashaya rasa, ushna virya, and all of them have a rukshana property which is common in them. So let us see a situation or a one scene where a patient of kafaja prameha comes to us with the involvement of Meda and Mausa Dhatu as explained in the classical text, and he has been given with the medicine that is having Katu and Ushnavira. Let us take an example of Nimba. Nimba is prescribed to them, as Nimba will take care of Kapha, Meda and Mausa, all the three factors. And let us say if the patient continues this treatment for 1 year. After 1 year, what can happen is the patient who has visited to us with the involvement of Meda and Mausa and the causative dosha as kapha, due to overuse of Tikta rasa and due to overuse of Katu rasa and Ushnavirya medicine, that is Nimba, in that particular patient, after 1 year the patient may come to us with the involvement of Pitta along with kapha and the involvement of Rakta Dhatu and involvement of Mausa. So at the end of 1 year, when the patient has over used the Nimba in him, when the patient has overused Nimba, the Kafaja Prameha is ultimately getting turned into Pitta Kafaja Prameha due to overuse of one particular medicine. And if we look at the practicing trends, then majority of Ayurvedic practitioners are relying on these proprietary medicines, or if they are dispensing their own medicines, majority of them are using a lot of Tikta and Kashaya medicines without considering the involvement of Tushas, or without considering the symptoms or the conditions which could be there due to ati yoga of that one particular rasa. So we need to think in the terms of which medicines which are using and for how long we should use them. So the shortfalls in current line of treatment that majority of the Ayurvedic practitioners are practicing is that uh, doshas are often getting ignored because the doshas are not examined as they should have been, and only emphasis is given on tikta and kashaya rasa or particular dosha and or only kapha. Then Dhatu Shaithilya is not at all addressed. No particular measures are being advised to the patient, or no particular medicines are being used for correcting the Dhatu Shaithilya, which is the hallmark or which is the basis of the Samprapti of Prameha. Then patients are also reluctant for frequent visitation to us. Generally, the patient comes to us with the mindset that we should prescribe him or we should prescribe her one particular set of medicines or one particular formula that the patient will continue to take lifelong and his diabetes will remain under control for a long period of time. And they compare our treatment with the modern treatment where we hardly need to change the treatment within a 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, and they expect the same thing from Ayurveda. So the patient compare our medicines with metformin or any other allopathic medicine, and they expect that they should, and they think that their diabetes can be controlled with one particular set or one particular powder for a long period of time. So if we call the patient for follow-up in a short period, let us say 15 days or 1 month, then the patient is reluctant to come to us. But in that case, we need to tell to the patient about our concept of treatment of prameha and why we need to see the patient frequently. Then our shortfall that or the thing that we do ignore when we are treating the cases of prameha is we think of a short term goals, but in long term the treatment has to be uh, envisioned in the long term. What could be the effects of the medicines which we are giving today in as far as the uh, chronicity of the disease is concerned or the long term management is required. And shodhana are not advised in routine practice, which is another important aspect of treatment of prameha. So whenever we are treating the patients on the basis of Ayurvedic principles, we need to understand that Ayurveda does not have any magic bullets. Ayurveda does not, rather cannot advise the way in which Ayurveda has explained the pathology of prameha, samprapti of prameha, the way Ayurveda has explained the dosha dusha sangraha. It is not possible to use one single medicine for a very long period of time, because in the a few slides before we have seen that how the use of one particular medicine can be detrimental as far as the patient health is concerned, and how the overuse of one particular set of medicine for a long time can actually harm the patient and increase the pathology of the disease. So no one single medicine for long term is necessary to follow this principle. And periodic follow-up is necessary, even though the patient may find that it is difficult or it is time consuming or it is not required to come to follow up regularly. We need to compel the patient that he or she should visit us at least once in a month or once in a 2 months, so that we can assess if uh, there is any change in the involvement of doshas, if there is any change in the involvement of the doshas, if there is any change in the condition of the patient due to the changes in the season or the changes in rutu. So on the basis of this assessment that is to be done periodically at least once in a month or once in a 2 months, uh, we we are supposed to improvise our treatment as far as the uh, show as far as the treatment of Prameha is considered. Then use of Shodhana is important. The Chikitsa Sutra of Prameha indicates the Snigdhasya Yoga Vividah Prayoja Kalpopadishta Malashodhanaya Urdhvam Tatha Adhascha Malayapanite Meheshu Santarpanameva Karyam. So only giving oral medicines, only giving Shamana treatment is not at all going to give us good results in long term as far as long term management of Prameha is considered. So there is definite role of Shodhana treatment, there is definite role of Panchakarma from time to time, and after every Shodhana treatment, there is a good role of Shamana, because the last part of the shlok says that Meheshu Santarpanameva Karyam. So what generally happens is after, even though we advise any type of Shodhana treatment to the patient, after Shodhana, the treatment is becomes relaxed, or the patient becomes relaxed, that he or she thinks that after this rigorous treatment of 10 days or 15 days, now my diabetes or my disease is very much controlled, and that is actually the time where we should treat the patient very wisely. So management after Shodhana is also very, very important, and it is clearly indicated by the acharyas that Urdhvam tatha adascha malayapanite meheshu santarpanameva karyam. So the management after Shodhana is also very, very important. On this basis, we had done this study as a part of my post-graduation research work, that is controlled evaluation of the composite management of Prameha with Samshodhan and Varadi Ghanavati. Varadi Ghanavati was a modified form of one of the classical Ayurvedic formulation, Varadi Kvata, mentioned in Sharakdhar Samhita. And we had three groups in this particular study. One group received Varadi Ghanavati for 3 months after undergoing Vamana. One group received Varadi Ganavati without Vamana, and third group was the control, that is standard modern treatment group. So here the group A is the group that has received Varadi Ganavati after Vamana treatment for 3 months. Group B is the group that has received Varadi Ganavati alone without any Vamana treatment or Shodhana treatment. And group C is the standard modern treatment group. And if you can see the mean values at the baseline, or that is visit 1, and at the end of visit 4, you can see that drastic change is seen in group A as compared to group B and group C. Even though group B is also showing good results, the amount or the magnitude of sugar, the reduction in sugar is maximum seen in group A, that has received Vamana as well as Varadi Ganavati. In postprandial blood sugar level, you will see the drastic difference in a better way. Group A that has received Vamana and Varadi Ganavati has shown maximum decrease as far as the postprandial blood sugar level was considered. From 247, it has dropped down to 178, which is quite within normal range. While Group B and Group C have not shown results of this magnitude. Then similarly, in glycosylated hemoglobin, we can say that the group that has received Vamana and Varadi Ganavati has shown the decrease of 1 gram percent as far as HbA1c is considered, while Group B and Group C have not shown results of this much magnitude. And wonderful results are seen as far as the total cholesterol levels are considered. You can see that in Group A that has received Vaman and Varadi Ganavati, we can see maximum decrease as far as the total cholesterol is concerned. Whereas in Group B and Group C, we can see that there is hardly any difference. In fact, in Group C, the cholesterol levels are on higher side as far as if we compare it to the baseline. So cholesterol, or the lipids, which are also considered as one of the culprits in the pathology of diabetes, have shown better results if we combine the treatment of Vamana or any type of Shodhana as well as the Shamana treatment is considered. In same way, we can see good results as far as BMI is concerned. In group A, the BMI has reduced to the normal range, which was previously in the range of overweight, that is 27.09. Whereas in other two groups, the BMI is still above the normal range, that is in the range of overweight. If we particularly see the effects of Vamana before, if we particularly see the effects of Vamana on different parameters, we can see that after conducting only Vamana treatment, the cholesterol is reducing from 208 to 183. That further reduced with the help of Shamana treatment and came down to 170 in the group that received Vamana and Varadi Ganavati. Blood sugar fasting and PP are also showing good results, but best result is seen in the blood sugar postprandial. Before Vamana, the mean blood sugar level was 254 and that has reduced to 208 by without giving any medicine, by just following the procedure of Vamana itself. So this is how we can improvise our treatment by periodic implementation of Vamana or conducting the Shodhana treatment from time to time and managing the patient meticulously after Shodhana or in between the two Shodhana treatments. Of course, we need to take care of Arha, Anarha. We need to see the Bala of patient. We need to see the status of the Dushas which are involved. But the highlighting point is the doshas will keep on piling up from time to time, and we need to evacuate them from the body from time to time. That's why periodically, if we can arrange such type of Shodhana treatment, then maybe we will be able to give better result as far as the long-term management of the disease is concerned. A lot of work needs to be done because the modern science also says, and in Ayurveda is also it is mentioned that the once the diabetes becomes chronic, it leads to a lot of complications, and once the complications start, it is difficult to manage the patient of diabetes, and ultimately the patient lands into end stage renal disease and dies because of the complications. So there is no such work yet done on the long-term management of Prameha on such grounds with the use of Shodhana as well as with the use of Shamana. A lot of papers will find about one-time administration of Shodhana and Shamana, and its effects are discussed, its effects are published in some journals. But what will happen to a patient if we follow one particular regimen of at least Shodhana in according to Rutucharya or one Shodhana per year? What are the outcomes as well as the long-term treatment of Prameha or diabetes is concerned? How many of them are getting complication? How many of them are not getting complications? These are very important observations which can change actually the way in which the world is thinking about the treatment of diabetes mellitus. But we need to generate the data, we need to conduct our studies on such grounds as to show the world the potency or the effect of Ayurvedic management. And let me share you another case report about the recurrence, that is anusangitva of prameha. This particular patient had come to our OPD with the symptoms of kaphaja prameha, with the symptoms of prabhuta avila mutrata. Before coming to us, he had visited to one of the modern physicians. According to the symptoms, he was advised to undergo the blood sugar testing, and the blood sugar testing was the blood sugar was above normal. So he was labeled as the case of diabetes mellitus, and he was started with the metformin 250 milligrams once a day. After taking the medicine for a couple of months, he visited our hospital in the month of July 2010, where the blood sugar levels were just above normal, but the HbA1c was deranged, and the patient was also having symptoms. The patient at that time was taking metformin 250 milligrams. We diagnosed the patient as a case of Kafaja Prameha based on Ayurvedic parameters. We started with one Ayurvedic formulation to the patient, one Ayurvedic medicine to the patient, and periodically we checked with the blood sugar levels. So after 2 to 3 weeks of treatment, the blood sugar that was deranged came into normal range. In the month of July 2010, it came to 96 mg per dl fasting and 105 mg per dl postprandial. And gradually, we keep on the blood sugar level checking. After a couple of months, in November 2010, we stopped with the metformin and we asked the patient to continue only Ayurvedic treatment. Ayurvedic treatment, of course, was changed from time to time. After November 2010, the patient did not visited the modern consultant or did not take any of the modern medicines. Then gradually, after 1 year, that is in May 2011, we reduced the dose of Ayurvedic medicine also. And subsequently, in the December of 2011, we stopped the Ayurvedic medicine also. After 2011 December, the patient has not taken any of the Ayurvedic medicine even for the treatment of Prameha, and the patient is off medicine. Even after 2011 December, whenever we are doing the blood sugar level or HbA1c, it is coming into normal range and the patient does not have any symptoms at all. We have followed the patient till 2017, and you can see at the last follow-up, when the patient was not taking any medicine for 5 years, the blood sugar was 101 mg per dl for fasting and 129 mg per dl at the postprandial level.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so if you can see the results in December 2017, when the patient last showed to us, even though the patient was not taking any Ayurvedic medicine for last 5 years, the patient was absolutely having normal blood sugar level. And as a dictum in modern science, it is said that if the patient is not having any symptoms, or if the patient's reports are normal for 5 years, he or she can be claimed as cured from that particular disease. Here the situation is same. The patient is symptom free. The patient is having normal blood sugar level for not 5 but 6 years, but still, and he may be claimed as cured of diabetes. But still, from Ayurvedic perspective, if we can see, the patient, we did not diagnose as the patient free from diabetes or free from prameha, because the patient was still having the symptoms of dhatu shaithilya. The symptoms of dhatu shaithilya were changing from time to time, and in the 2017, the patient was having predominant tvak rauksha and predominant tilakalaka on his skin without any evident reason. So the patient was still having dhatu shaithilya, and what was happening? What was happening is, hello, is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what could have been happening, that the dhatus are still shithila, but as the dosha are not getting engulfed in the dhatus or not getting connected with the dhatus, the samprapti was not getting completed, and that's why it was appearing as if the patient is free of the disease. But actually the patient was not free of the disease. The patient was still having the remnants of prameha in him, and he could have turned into a pramehi at the point of time when the dosha dushti, or when the collection of doshas was again achieved, or was again observed. But as the patient was very yapak or bishakvasya, he continued to follow the diet regimen, he continued to follow the regular exercise, he continued to take all the precaution to prevent him from getting prameha again. That's why even without medicine, he could manage the sugar levels in normal limit. But and though from modern science point of view, we can claim that the patient might be free from diabetes, from Ayurveda's perspective we cannot claim that the patient is free from prameha. So this is how we can improvise our uh, diagnostic methods. We can improvise our we can improvise our patient examinations, and based on this improvised patient examinations from Ayurveda's point of view, we can better manage the patient, we can manage the patient in a better way as far as the modern science is concerned. In this regards, what Ayurveda says is also getting learned by the modern sciences, and we can see that the effect of long-term hyperglycemia or effect of hyperglycemia in the shape of HbA1c. So this particular type of hemoglobin can be seen in patients of diabetes, and that is an effect of glycosylation of hemoglobin due to hyperglycemia. And we can say that modern science is able to reach up to the level of glycosylated hemoglobin only, but Ayurveda, on the other hand, can explain the effect of doshas on various doshas based on the symptoms of dhatu sarata and asarata, based on the symptoms of involvement of different dhatus which are in different diseases. And on these parameters, if we are able to diagnose the patient, if we are able to examine the patient based on these parameters, maybe we will be able to find the involvement of particular dusha, and we will be in a position in better treatment as compared to the modern counterpart. Now, is there any mention of absolute cure for prameha in Ayurveda? The absolute cure is mentioned only by Acharya Vagbhata in Ashtanga Hridaya. मधुमेहित्वमापन्नो भिषग्भिः परिवर्जितः शिलाजतु तुलामद्यात् प्रमेहार्तः पुनर्नवः. So a patient of chronic diabetes who is considered as untreatable by many of the physicians or many of the doctors can get a new life by the use of Shilajatu, and Acharya Vagbhat has advocated the use of Shilajatu to the tone of 1 tula, that comes to some kilograms. And though the textual reference is there, no one has tried yet to think of the ways in how can a person consume some kilos of Shilajatu, in what way it has to be consumed, in what dose it has to be consumed on daily basis or on weekly basis, or whatever the regime can be thought of. But reference is there. We also know the properties of Shilajatu, that the name itself suggests that it has a capacity to make the dhatus as strong as a shila or as strong as a stone. So Shilajatu, we can understand that has a good potential to make oneself free from dhatu shaithilya, which is hallmark of the disease, hallmark of the prameha, and that is why it could have been mentioned as the absolute cure for the disease, absolute cure for prameha. But no one has yet tried this, or no one has even tried to imagine how we can follow this particular reference in a practical way. But references are there, and there is a need that we should all come together. We should try and see the patients of Prameha, not just the patients of diabetes as the modern science looks into, not just target to achieve the proper glycemic control, but we should look beyond. We need to have a vision on the status of the doshas. We need to have the idea about the status of Dhatu Shaithilya, and we need to improvise our treatment with the help of all the armory that we have. We have uh, good treatments explained for Shodhana. We have good medicines explained for Shamana treatment. We have a lot of Pathya Pathya. We have a lot of different aspects of the disease that can actually help in better management than the modern sciences. That's why, with the help of these particular treatment modalities, might be there might be the fact that in previous days the acharyas were able to cure this particular disease, but in current scenario, as we are not paying attention to these particular or these many aspects of the disease, we are unable to make it possible. We are unable to make the cure of this one particular disease possible. It is sure that whoever is capable or whoever cures the patient of diabetes in in a systematic way or uh, in a particular scientific way, which are acceptable to Ayurveda and which are acceptable to modern sciences as well, will definitely receive the Nobel Prize of that particular year, because the magnitude of the problem is so much high that a lot of improvisation in treatment of diabetes is considered, and it is possible to make that improvisation from the Ayurveda's perspective by following the principles of Ayurveda. So what is expected from us, the disciples of Ayurveda, is to understand what has been told about Prameha and to try and implement it practically whenever we are coming across to the whenever we are coming across to the patient of Prameha. So with these words, I would like to thank you all for your patient listening, and I would also like to thank uh, Dr. Mangesh Patil sir and all the team of EA Ayurshala for inviting me for this third lecture. This is my third lecture on this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful and informative lecture on challenges of Ayurvedic practice in Prameha. So we will wait for 1 minute. So I request to delegates, please put your queries or questions regarding today's topic in the chat box only. Direct questions will not be entertained. Hello, Dr. Shailesh sir, can we start?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Question from Dr. Satish Narke. Kafaj Prameya is Sadhya, Pittaj is Kashta Sadhya, and Vataj is Yapta. How to interpret?
I did not get the question because it has been told that Kafaja Prameha is Sadhya due to Samakriyatvat. That is the treatment that is given for Kapha. The same treatment will be useful in the management of the involvement of the doshas, which is primarily Meda and Mausa. That's why both the dosha and dosha can be treated by the same treatment or by using the medicines having similar Rasaguna Virya Vipak. But for Pittaja, it will be different, and for Vataja, it is told as Mahatyaya. That means a great danger because on one hand there is Vata Prakop, and on the other hand there is Dhatukshay that is happening. That's why Kafaja Prameha is considered as Sadhya, whereas other types are considered as Yapya and Asadhya.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Kolkata. Namaste, sir. How to understand the point where the Kafaj Prameya is changing into other Prameya, either Pittaj or Vataj?
Yes, it has been mentioned in the by Sushruta. That's all the types of prameha which get convert into madhumeha, which is a type of vataja prameha, due to its chronicity, or if the patient does not take the treatment in a proper way. But it depends on the skill of the treating doctor. How will he or she can diagnose, or how will she or how he or she can get the idea of change of the dosha, that is kafaja prameha getting converted into pittaja or vataja. That is why whenever we are seeing the patient, whenever we are calling the patient for the follow up, we need to keep an eye, we need to check thoroughly for the predominant dosha, to see the predominant dosha and to see which doshas are there. And it is our duty, if a patient is coming to us in a stage where he can be diagnosed as Kapha Prameha, it is our duty that we should prevent him from landing into Pittaja or Vataja Prameha. But it is absolutely dependent on the skill of the doctor, how he or she can diagnose.
Okay, sir. Next question from Dr. Jyoti. When should we give Rasayan treatment in diabetic patients and how long?
Yes. See, Rasayana is something that is required for everyone. In a diabetic patient, we need to give Rasayana till there is no Dhatu Shaithilya, because Dhatu Shaithilya is something that is very, very essential as far as the treatment of, or as far as the pathology of Prameha is considered. So, if we can get rid of Dhatu Shaithilya, whatever may be the collection of doshas there in the body, it can cause any other disease but not Prameha. So the upper margin or the limit of giving rasayana is till there is dhatu shaithilya present in the body in any of the doshas, the disease can recur. And if we can look at the plethora of doshas which can get involved in the samprapti of prameha, then except asti, all other dhatus are there. So it's difficult to keep all the doshas free from shaithilya. But to answer the question, the duration of giving rasayana is till all the doshas are non-shithila.
Okay, sir. Next one from Dr. Surekha. Is Vasantakumar Ras with the gold helpful in all conditions?
No, actually Vasanta Kusumakar is a Suvarna preparation only. So Vasanta Kusumakar with gold is, I mean, if there is any Vasanta Kusumakar available without gold, then we cannot call it as Vasanta Kusumakar. Vasanta Kusumakar is a Swarnakalpa only, and it may not be helpful in all conditions, especially if the condition is there of Apatarpanjanya Prameha, or in condition where the complications of diabetes are started, or in conditions where the bala of patient has become very low, or in conditions where the patient is a diabetic and he has got some another disease he where he requires an immediate support to dhatus or immediate support to the osha, then Vasanta Kusumakar is helpful. It need not be used rampantly in all the cases of prameha.
Okay, thanks, sir. Next question from Dr. Kolkata. Sir, how to interpret as Santarpanan and Snigdeshu in Chikitsa Sutra of Prameya?
See, snigdheshu means we should not do any type of shodhana treatment without attaining particular level of snehana, because snehana is important to break the bond between the doshas and dushas, and snehana is also important to snehana is also important to maintain the bala of the dhatus whenever we are doing shodhana treatment. So the snigdheshu is related with the shodhana treatment, and santarpana we misunderstand as related with the uh, replenishment of the dhatus. But here we need to interpret the word santarpana, or we need to understand the word santarpana as to make the dhatus stout, or to make the dhatus ghana, or to make the dhatus free from the dhatu shaithilya. That is what we should understand the santarpana as. So santarpana does not mean that we should give bruhana always, or we should give something that will replenish the dhatus always. But santarpana should be understood, or needs to be understood, as something that will make the dhatus nibida, or that will make the dhatus strong and stout and free from shaithilya.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Anita Gupta. Sir, how to manage frozen shoulder in diabetic patient?
Yes, frozen shoulder and diabetes are very related to each other, and many of the diabetic patients complain of this particular condition, that is frozen shoulder. So if we consider frozen shoulder, it is like stambha, or we can correlate it with Vishwachi, or we can just label it as stambha of one particular muscle or one particular mausapeshi in the skandha area or the shoulder area, and we need to treat it with the help of snehana snehana by using vishagar oils such as Vishagarbha Taila, or by using oils such as Nirgundi Taila for Snehana, and a regular exercise, because this particular condition is there because of rather it is associated with diabetes, and it tends to recur again and again. So in in the beginning of the treatment, we need not tell the patient to do particular exercise related to shoulder joint, but after few sittings of snehana and svedana, when the patient feels comfortable and he can or she can move the shoulder a little bit, then we should immediately start with the exercises, because uh, the muscles or the mausadhatu in the patients of prameha is prone to get stambha, or is prone to get stiffness if if the exercises are not followed. So the ultimate treatment in long term is exercises only. We can tell particular exercises by consulting the physiotherapist, or we can tell particular exercises from the yoga part, but exercises is necessary, and snehan svedan along with that use of internal medicines such as Mahamanjishtadi Ghana or use of particular medicines such as Punarnavadi Kashaya can help in such condition in the management of frozen shoulder.
Oh, okay, sir. Nicely explained. Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Sumita. Sir, in which condition should we use Vasanta Kusumakar?
As I has told before, Vasanta Kusumakar is a Swarna Kalpa. It is very, very Bruhana and Rasayana type of Kalpa. So in cases where the patient is of Apatarpanajanya Prameha or Madhumeha, or if the patient is having severe Balahani, or if the patient is having severe Taurbalya, in such conditions, Vasanta Kusumakar can give good results.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Anita Gupta. Sir, how to manage erectile dysfunction in diabetic?
See, diabetic patients are also having a lot of uh, problems as far as the sexual functions are concerned, and erectile dysfunction is very common in it. Erectile dysfunction, we can uh, diagnose it as involvement of Shukra Dhatu as well as involvement of Mausa and Rakta Dhatu. And if we can remove the Shithilata in these three dushyas, especially Mausa and Rakta, then erectile dysfunction can be uh, taken care of. In this particular condition, we need to use Shodhana before giving any type of Rasayana or before giving any type of Vajikarana medicine. So with the help of Shodhana, we can achieve the Sharira Shuddhi, and after Sharira Shuddhi, we can go for Rasayana or Vajikarana medicine that can give good results in erectile dysfunction.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Manoj Kumar Agarwal. How to manage IDDM and how it is explained in Ayurveda?
See, IDDM is a very difficult condition, and IDDM we can correlate with the Samprapti of Prameha that is explained in Charak Samhita Sutra Sthan, where there is involvement of Vata, where there is involvement of Kapha, and there is involvement of Pitta as well. So, if we look at that particular Samprapti, then the situation in body is like that due to all the Santarpanjanya hetus, that is explained in Kiyanta Shirasiya, that is 17th chapter in Sutrasthan. Due to all the Santarpanjanya hetus, the dhatus are become lax or dhatus have become shithila, and the kapha or pitta are also aggravated. But those aggravated kapha and pitta, without causing Santarpanjanya prameha, they are causing the samprapti of avrutavata, and that avrutavata is become dominant in body, and that avrutavata is actually carrying all the oja to the basti, and that oja is being thrown away from the body. So it is a mixture of Santarpanjanya Prameha and Apatarpanjanya Prameha. The hetus are of Santarpanjanya Prameha, but the effect is of Apatarpanjanya Prameha, that is sudden depletion of Oja itself. So that particular condition becomes very, very difficult to manage. But if we want to have a samprapti of IDDM, whether it is explained in Ayurveda or not, then we can try to correlate this particular samprapti to the management, to the samprapti of, to the pathology of IDDM, or we can try to imagine from Ayurveda's point of view what could be the condition in the body. And this particular condition is very, very difficult, because if we give medicines which are against the Santarpanjanya hetus, then it is going to cause the Vata Prakopa. And if we are giving anything to control the Vata Prakopa, then it is going to cause the Santarpan in the body to the greater extent, and thereby it is going to increase the Avarana on the Vata itself. So it is very tricky situation, and it is difficult to treat this particular condition. I have seen some of the Vaidyas who are treating this particular condition with the help of Suvarna Kalpas, that is like Vasanta Kusumakar, but very limited results are seen, and we can stop the progression of dose of insulin. In IDDM patients also, the dose of insulin keeps on increasing from time to time. And if we intervene from Ayurvedas with the help of Ayurvedic medicines, then for the time being we can stop the progression of rather the rate of insulin increase. But the cure of this particular condition is not possible. Ayurveda has also clearly told that.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Namrata. Please explain apatarpan in Prameha.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Apatarpan in Prameha. Okay. Apatarpan is also told as one of the causes of prameha, that is apatarpan janya prameha, whereby due to apatarpan, that is due to dhatu kshaya, there is vata prakop, due to kleda kshaya there is vata prakop, and the samprapti of prameha is completed, and that particular condition is considered as asadhya because that cannot be cured. And apatarpan in prameha means shodhana treatment, giving shodhana from time to time to evacuate the body, to make the body free from doshas. And this particular treatment has a limited role because even though we have evacuated doshas from the body, dhatu shithilata still remains, which is important to treat as far as the treatment of prameha is considered. And apatarpana has a limited role to treat the dhatu shithilata. The best way of apatarpana treatment to treat dhatu shithilata is by vyayama, because with vyayama there is vibhakta ghana gatratva, which is mentioned. So with apatarpana as vyayama, we can try to manage diabetes or prameha.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Manoj. How to manage different diabetic complications in relation to dosha and dhatu?
See, if we try to, rather if we want to manage the complications of prameha or complications of diabetes, then we need to take care of rakta dhatu to the utmost, because all the complications which are seen in diabetes are related with the marmas or are related with the indriyas or indriya adhishthana. Like neuropathy and retinopathy are related with the indriyas, and the complications such as IHD or complications such as nephropathy are related with the marmas. So if we can take care of rakta dhatu to the maximum, then it will give us good results. Even though rakta is not dushya in such condition, rakta prasadana needs to be done from time to time. Rakta prasadana needs to be taken care of, especially when we are treating the case of chronic diabetes. Rakta prasadana is needed, or if the rakta is involved in the samprapti, then management of that particular rakta dhatu, rakta dushti, is very important. But if we can manage the rakta dhatu and mausa dhatu, many of the complications will be taken care of.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Dr. Satish Narke. Sir, is it possible to reverse IDDM?
No, it's not possible yet to reverse the IDDM because Ayurvedic texts have also said so. Because IDDM, the pathology or the samprapti of IDDM, if we try to find the comparable as far as Ayurvedic texts are concerned, then it is of Avruta Vatajanya Madhumeha, which involves Santarpana as well as Avruta Vata. So it's not possible to reverse the pathology of IDDM.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next question from Dr. Satish. Juvenile diabetes, how to treat?
Yes, the juvenile diabetes, that is IDDM only, insulin dependent only. In that condition, we can try to use some of the Bruhana Dravyas such as Vasanta Kusumakar Ras, which are especially meant or which are especially mentioned as Pramehagna or by using Chandra Prabhavati. But the results in IDDM or juvenile diabetes are very limited, and the results are seen for short period of time only.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next question from Dr. Manoj Kumar. Treatment of diabetic, autonomic neuropathy, and diabetic chemoatropathy and constipation.
Yes, like I said before, for treatment of complications of diabetes, what we need to manage is Rakta Dhatu, because Rakta is considered or explained as Raktam Jiva iti sthiti. Rakta is important factor as far as the status of marmas, as far as the status of Indriyas is concerned. So to treat the neuropathy, we need to do the Rakta Prasadana. To treat the neuropathy, we need to take care of Rakta Dhatu, and also for constipation. The constipation is also there due to autonomic neuropathy, and with the help of Rakta Prasadana only it can be done. We need to take care while treating the patient of constipation, because once we give a particular medicine for Malashodhana or one that is acting against constipation without giving any type of Pachana or without giving any type of Raktashodhana or Raktaprasadana medicine, the demand of anti-constipation medicine keeps on increasing. And we can see or we can observe it in the practice that if one particular person is getting relieved of constipation by 1 spoon of Gandharvaharitaki this year, and he does not take proper treatment for constipation, next year he will require 2 spoons of Gandharvaharitaki or 3 spoons of Gandharvaharitaki, or it may also happen that Gandharvaharitaki will not help him to get relief of constipation also. So treatment of constipation is a tricky thing, and we need to take care of the process of digestion. We need to keep the digestion in an optimum level, and we need to use the medicine which are Malashodhana or which are Rechana in a very limited dose and for a limited amount of time only. Otherwise, the overuse of Malashodhana medicines actually lands into Vata Prakopa in Pakvashay, and then the condition becomes worse.
Thank you very much, sir. This was the last question from today's session. So once again, thank you, sir, for your very informative lectures on challenges in Ayurveda practice in Prameha. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
I request